Well, it's not warm today, I'll tell you that, but this is as warm as it's going to be for quite some time, I think. And this is certainly my last weekend before a frost, which is not unusual for us. In any case, this being the last semi-warm day before a lot of things need to happen in the garden, because I am waiting for a frost for a lot of things. I'm trying to get the things done that I can get done before a freeze today while it's sort of semi-tolerable outside. So I'm sort of running around doing all those jobs today, but the first thing we are doing is we are at the cottage where we are saving plants and cleaning out pots. And I'm looking at them right now, and there's a lot of work to do here. The goal here is we're just save. This is this fabulous Royal Hawaiian Waikiki Colocasia. I have 2 here, 1 at the house. I'm going to aim to save all 3 of them. So the way I'm going to save these Colocasias, because I'm going to save these plus coffee cups, none of these are big bulb formers. So what I do is wait for them to go dormant, dig them out, knock off the dirt, and wrap them up in a towel, which is the same thing I do with the banana. And I'll link that video because it's the same concept, which is that they need some moisture, but not too much moisture. And this towel concept, which I got from Marianne Wilburn's book, Tropical Plants and How to Love Them, I will link that below. The idea behind that is that it sort of absorbs excess moisture and then also can provide some of that moisture back if it gets a little dry. It worked for me pretty well last year with the coffee cups. So I'm gonna dig this up. Now, the problem is that obviously these are not dormant yet. So I'm gonna probably try to keep them, dig them up, try to keep them going a little bit until they fully go dormant by themselves. Dorothy, don't go over there. That's just burrs. So the good news is that all those plants came out with their root balls pretty much intact, which means there's not a whole bunch of roots in this soil that's left in these pots. This is the Organic Mechanics container blend, which is a compost-based potting mix. It actually has soil in it. So I reuse this usually as long as there's not like huge chunks of roots that are getting in the way. I will use the soil for at least 2 years in a pot before I change it out. And because these pots are huge, it's really nice that this soil looks really good in here. Last year, the plants came out with pretty big root balls, so I had to add quite a bit this year, but I didn't do a total changeover. So it will be the 3rd year for these pots. These are the Crescent Garden rim self-watering containers. What you need to do in winter is open these up so any water that goes in just immediately flows right out. The reservoir doesn't fill up at all, because otherwise that would freeze and that would be bad. But it's much easier to show you on the smaller pots. So these pots did really well this year. Actually, I think I have a video that I'll show you from towards the end of the year. In the latest edition of Erin Analyzes Container Plantings from the Pool, I want to talk about this plant right here. That is Luscious Tangelo Basket Tangelo Lantana. And holy smokes, is that a superstar. And all 3 of these containers, now keep in mind, these containers don't get a lot of love. They're self-watering, but I haven't been out here and fertilized them in ages. And in all 3 of them, that lantana is doing absolutely fabulous. The cannas in 2 of them did so good, and the canna in this one did like nothing. I don't know. They all started the same, as far as I know. We're not saving anything from these pots. This is all going out the window. This is more the Queen Tut Papyrus, which looked really good in here. So if you aren't familiar with where the heck we are right now, this is a multi-generational, multi-family cottage situation out here. Well, I think it's safe to say we won't be reusing the soil. Oh my God. Oh my God, this canna just ate it all. So before I clean up my mess here, I want to show you how the other two came out. I didn't even bother trying to pull the plants out of these. Because obviously the whole root ball was going to come. So these two both came with the full feeding tube, so to speak. So these are empty, although you can see like where the roots go through the little holes here. I've taken the covers off the plugs, or the plugs off the drains, I should say. And then you can see what I do here is I just angle everything with the drain down, so when water does go in these pots, the water will just drain out and they won't freeze. So I do just leave them out like this. They obviously need a very good cleaning. I am not going to worry about that now. They'll get all dirty this winter anyway. We'll just clean them up in spring. A quick note about those self-watering pots. The hardest part about that is remembering where you put those plugs. So as a note to myself in the future, and for all of you to remind me next year, they're in the junk drawer, labeled in a little plastic bag. Thank you. So I have just my Colocasia left in this pot. It's looking fairly pathetic because there's not a lot of soil in here and I haven't really watered this much. But because I want these Colocasias to go dormant by themselves without being pushed into dormancy or by me basically killing them by cutting them off, I'm going to put it in the soil and just heal it in here. It will only be a couple of days, but I still think it's better for it to die back naturally than it is for me to push it there. So the way I think about this is sort of like sneaking a kid who's fallen asleep in a car into bed. When plants go into dormancy on their own, I feel like you can just kind of think of them as unconscious. And you can get away with a lot more with them than you can otherwise. So, for instance, if I cut these all the way back, plants have a natural response to sort of push a bunch of energy to try to grow more foliage. So if I just cut these back right now and put these into storage, yeah, they probably, odds are pretty good they'd probably be fine, because I always say plants are tougher than we think they are. But what happens when you cut back a plant? Its natural reaction, its chemical reaction, is to recover from that and to push a bunch of foliage and use up a whole bunch of energy that we don't want going into all of that, because that weakens the plant. And I'm going to water this in. I'm going to get the hose out and water this all in. By doing that and allowing these plants to die back from frost in just a couple of days, I will be able to cut the stems back, which will have died already, and then proceed with storing these. The next job involves this box. All right, these are corrugated tree guards, and they are unattractive things, but they're really important here and in many places, because primarily deer. Now these also prevent sun scald, which can be a problem on some thinner bark trees where the sun heats up. I don't exactly know how it works, to be honest. But basically, like thinner bark trees, the sun heats them up in winter and then it gets cold or something, and then basically the bark explodes. But the real issue for these, at least in my yard, is deer protection, because those bugger deers don't just eat your plants, they also rub on them. So the bucks will rub their antlers on them, and that is a big problem. The other thing is that I've had rabbits eat the bark of my tree trunks before. So I bought some of these in a variety of sizes. I don't even know if this will cover what I need to cover, but we're going to go stick some of these on. So you can probably get these at your local garden center if you have a good one. For some reason, I can never find them. I bought these from A.M. Leonard. Now, originally, I was going to order these from Amazon, and they seemed a little expensive to me. They were actually like 3 for $30. And so I sort of followed the brand that was linking them, and then I Google searched that and found out it's A.M. Leonard who's shipping these. And they are charging a premium for them on Amazon to, I assume, not only cover the prime shipping charges, because A.M. Leonard will charge you shipping, also to cover the service fees from Amazon. So 3 of them were $8 or $9 on A.M. Leonard. So this is one thing where I put a link to these. It's not an affiliate link or anything. What it is just the cheapest place that I found them if you need to order these. That one was just for rabbit protection, and I think the rabbits are worse than the deer sometimes. I've had rabbits do a horrible number to trunks before. Oh, here. Let me turn the camera around so you can see what we're walking past. Here's the banana. I'm gonna measure it before it gets flopped over, but I don't think it's as big as it was last year actually, but maybe that's just because it's in the ground. The next ones we're gonna do are these little birch trees. And if you don't remember these being here before, it's because they weren't, because these are the birch trees that were in the containers in the driveway, and we replanted them here a couple weeks ago. So these will definitely get destroyed by deer. So definitely got to protect these. I guess fall is just all about random jobs, because here's the random job I have to. Now, the other day I noticed over here, anybody recognize that? That's greater celandine. Greater celandine is an invasive plant. I've never seen it growing in my garden other than this spot right here. And let me show you my theory on how it got there. All of the buildings on this property, nothing is square or level, including our garage. So when we had the roof redone on the garage several years ago, we also had a new gutter put on. In order to try to get the gutter remotely pitched properly, which is down that way to the rain barrel, we had to put it on at a huge angle. The angle is still not enough to overcome how out of level this building is. So sometimes it overflows on this side. In fact, all the time when it rains heavy, the gutter overflows here. The greater celandine is right underneath there. My theory is, this is also why I think this climbing hydrangea does so well here, because I think that gutter drains down there and it provides it a lot of water. Anyway, the birds hang out in that open gutter, take little baths up there or whatever. I think seed came on in a bird, gutter overflowed, greater celandine flowed out right there, and that's how we have it. Doesn't matter how we got it, other than it's kind of interesting to theorize, but it's not going to stay, so we're going to dig that out. Okay, so that was like a 10-second task. And it makes all the difference in the world to keep that from spreading and becoming really problematic. And I think sometimes as gardeners, we just don't do the things that are right in front of us because it interrupts what we're doing. And that's why fall is kind of nice, because we're doing everything all at once. We do have some bulbs to plant. So I have a whole bunch of alliums. So I got these, a nice selection of alliums from Longfield Gardens. And they're one of the few that carry the allium. You might be able to see some of the stems from it back here, which I left them standing so I'd know where they were. It's called Ambassador. It's the latest blooming allium in my garden. And it is primo. It's tall. Let's say 4 feet. It gets heads about this size, very dense, and better than maybe anything else, the foliage is beautiful. It's really pretty, nice, shiny foliage, and that foliage persists quite a bit into when they're blooming. You know, sometimes allium foliage really gets ugly pretty quickly. I planted a few of these last year in the garden I did with Roy, and that's where I'm going to be putting a bunch more. I often find that it works best for me to, rather than spread everything around, just make one area look really good. I would say, without any doubt, my favorite big allium that I've ever grown. Okay, so while I'm planting these, check out a couple little tips I had for using an auger. I love planting bulbs with augers. I've actually been doing it for, gosh, at least a decade now, well before really good augers like this one were created. So there are some tips though. So first of all, make sure you got to have a powerful enough drill. 18 volts and up, I think is kind of the key. You'll make sure you know how to work your drill. That's pretty basic. Make sure that your auger is in there nice and tight. Tighten your the chuck however works best for your drill. Okay, here's the thing. This is my number one tip. This little guy, the gear, this is what you want to pay attention to. Do not put that thing all the way over here to the picture of the little drill thing. Don't do that. That's going to be problematic. So don't start there. I want you to scroll this baby all the way back to probably 1 or maybe 2. Start really low there. Then start drilling. See where it gets stuck in the ground and then adjust it up by 1. I have actually been drilling most things when I do bulbs. Now granted, I don't have super thick hard soil to get through. I do most of it with the gear on. Is that the gear? I don't even know if that's the gear. This number, if you know what this is called, you're not watching this video. This number at like a 3. The idea is that by having that at that low number, the drill will stop when it hits something rather than take you for a ride with it. So start low. You can always turn this up as you need to for the soil you're working in, but don't get overconfident about it. You want the drill to stop when it hits something that's going to take you for a ride with it. And then my last tip is when you're using an auger, take these gloves, put them in your back pocket, not on your hands. Do not have things on your hands when your hands are right next to something that's spinning. Next up, I have Nigrum. This is another late blooming one. Often right at about June 30th to July 4th for me. And I've had this one for a while, but I really gained a new appreciation for it last year when I was on a garden tour at another garden. And they had little clumps of this, maybe 5 to 7 of them planted in one area. And I think there was like Nepeta in there, and it just works so well. It's a white blooming one. It kind of gets like a half dome on top of it of flower. And it's maybe, well, let's see what it says here. It says 30 to 36 inches tall, and I would have said somewhere, I guess in that range, 34 inches tall, 30. This is what I am calling the finger garden, because it sticks out like a finger. There's no rhyme or reason to these things. And I'm going to put several of them here, but I'm also going to put some in the new circle area that I made this year. All right, the next spot for Nigrum is right in here. Now, in a couple of videos this year, I talked about this area a little bit, but this year, this is the east side of our house. Sometimes I call it the back, it's the side. Anyway, I made this piece of grass into an actual circle. For years it had been sort of an oval or ellipse shape, and it was driving me nuts. So I changed these beds a little bit to make the grass a full circle. So I redid this area and basically pulled out all the mishmash of plants that were in here, replaced this all with a lot of lady's mantle, Alchemilla mollis, and Nepeta early bird, I think is what I put there. 5 of them, just 5 of the Nepetas dotted throughout amongst the lady's mantle. There's a rose in the back, and there's a few other things. And there's also some Sanguisorba in there of a variety. I'm not sure which one it is. Anyway, I'm going to dot some groupings of these Nigrums in there as well, because I think that will be a great look. So I've got 2 more varieties. This is Bulgaricum. This is, I'll have to put a picture of it on the screen because it's difficult to describe. Some people think these get really weedy. I don't know, I think they're kind of cute. But, you know, maybe they're spreading like mad for some people. I guess I haven't noticed that personally. And then lastly, possibly my very favorite allium, if I had to pick one bulb form allium, and that's Christophii, which gets these sort of 18-inch tall stems. Let's see if they're right about that. They say 12 to 16. I'd say 18-inch maybe. But they get heads that I mean, a foot, 10 inches, 10 to 12 inches wide. Kind of look like sparklers. Plant them right up in the front. Don't bury them anywhere. Plant them right up in the front in little groupings. They are amazing. And I tell you what, I have a grouping of them out by the road. People ask me about them all the time. So by far my favorites. I'm always going to be adding more of these in. You know, I had planned on putting these Christophii. Oh, what's in my pocket? Oh, I think I just found more Alliums. I just found 2 more ambassadors in my pocket. I had planned on putting these Christophii out by the road to, as I discussed earlier, have some out there to bulk those up. But now that I'm over here by the new path that we did last year, I actually think they would be really good here, and a really good thing because at that time of year we actually are walking on this path quite a lot. So I get to enjoy them, not the people driving by. So many leaves have fallen, it's hard to tell where plants are and where leaves are. They're all gonna fall so much in the next few days here that I'm not cleaning up anything right now. I do try to batch leaf cleanup and not just constantly be doing it. Now that I talk about leaf cleanup, I just realized I better jump in and clarify that immediately to make it clear. Okay, so when I talk about leaf cleanup, I am mostly talking about getting them off the lawn. It is important to not let whole leaves lay on your lawn. So, because it will create real fungal issues if you have a lawn. If you can chop them up and then like real fine and then mulch them up and then they can stay on your lawn, that's just fine. So what we do is, and I've talked about this a million times, so I'll be very quick here. We basically collect all the leaves that have fallen. We chop them up with the mower, we bag them, and then they either go into garden beds to be used as mulch, into the compost pile. I cover up most of the vegetable garden beds with leaves as well. I guess those are the 3 things that happen with them. But some of these areas where there's just like a ton of leaves laying in between all these plants, and like I will clean off the steps behind me because obviously I don't want leaves laying on top of the gravel. That's a really great way to build some beautiful soil to make weeds in. So we'll blow a little bit of that out, but it all goes back. I know that's ridiculous. I don't go through a lot of work to do that, but right on the edge there, I will get that off the path. So that will come out of there, chop it up, whatever. And I do have a couple of beds this year that I've sort of targeted for a full leaf mulching. I don't have enough to do everything every year, so I always sort of move it around a little bit, and the leaves will go there. So when I say clean up leaves, I don't mean rake them up and send them somewhere. We don't live somewhere where you can send your leaves somewhere anyway, but that is what I do with my leaves. If I look a little smug here, it's because that was the last bulb that I have to plant this year. I don't think I've ever been done planting bulbs in October. Half the time I don't even start until November. I am shocked with myself right now. It feels fabulous, to be honest. I did cut back big time over what I usually do, and I'm not unhappy about that. It feels fabulous. All right. Fall gardening is all about doing a bunch of tiny little jobs that just have to get done. And I feel like that's what we did today. I hope you're getting lots done in your garden. Next time you're back here, I guarantee you it's going to be looking a lot different because the weather is changing.